handle that? I'm sorry. Okay, I am recording, so we got that going. Charles, would you rather handle the questions as they come up, wait till the end? They could write them in the chat, or they could just, raise their hand at the end. How would you like to handle the question and answer part?
Well, I think we've got small-ish groups, so it's always nice to have a little bit of interactive discussion. So as questions arise, feel free to unmute yourself, or I guess, Bob, you would unmute people maybe to allow them to ask.
Sure.
Or you could write them in the chat. I probably won't be able to monitor the chat all that well while I'm talking.
We could
Bob,
do that for you. We could do that for you. So if something
Sure.
does come up and maybe it's not related to what you're speaking about, maybe they could put that in the chat. If it's something related to what you're speaking about, then they could maybe unmute and then
Sure.
ask at the time, if that makes sense. Is that okay?
Sure.
Okay, great.
Sounds good.
Okay.
Well, it's an honor and a pleasure to be here. And I love my iPhone. I also shoot with a Nikon. I have the D800, still haven't gone mirrorless. But so I don't want you to think I exclusively photograph using my phone, but I understand a lot of you are interested in the phone. So that was one reason we decided on this topic. And so before I get started, it'd be great or helpful for me to know where you all are at in terms of your skill level with the phone. I mean, how many of you, I guess you could just kind of raise your hand like I'm doing. How many of you are just starting out to maybe use your phone for more than, pictures of grandkids, that kind of thing? Few of you, just okay, fair number of you just kind of beginning. How many of you have used it extensively and pretty comfortable shooting with the phone and use it quite a bit? Okay, awesome, great. Yeah, I mean, you guys can maybe teach me something. I'm still learning as we go. But I started, gosh, I think it was probably the iPhone 4 was maybe the first one I had. And so it's just been real interesting to see how Apple has progressed with all of this. How many of you are not shooting with an iPhone, using like an Android type phone? Anybody? Okay, so this is good. Most of what I'm going to talk about does relate specifically to the iPhone, but I'll mention the equivalent app in case some of you are using an Android phone. So
I'm sorry to interrupt. Since we're recording this, there are several members. I see only one person right now, but there are several members who do not use iPhones. So any kind of commentary you can make towards the other types of phone, that would be great.
Sure, absolutely. Yeah, thanks for letting me know that. Yep. So you're welcome to take notes as we go along here. And, of course, it is going to be recorded. So that's something good. You can go back and listen. I'm going to try to keep this fairly basic, but I may talk a little bit about a little bit more advanced type things too, just for those of you who are already familiar with your phone and using the phone a lot to make photographs. And I understand you did have a presentation where someone talked about Snapseed in depth. Am I right, Bob?
Yes, that was the last month.
Yeah, so that's the one app, like if you don't learn any other app, that's an amazing app for both Android and iPhone. It's free. And if you just master that, you are 90% there. I mean, there's all these other fancy painterly apps and so forth, but just to get an image looking a little better than it is coming straight out of the phone when you capture it, that's an awesome app just for that, as you probably already learned when you had that other session. So I love Snapseed, use it a lot. And so I recommend you use it. If anybody has questions about Snapseed, or you want to see a particular tool in Snapseed demonstrated again, or that kind of thing, I'm happy to do that for you. So let me know. But let's dive in. So I have kind of like a PowerPoint presentation, and then after that, depending how much time we have left, I'm going to actually show you live using my phone a few of my favorite apps and how to work them, how to use them. So let me share my screen. Let's see if This will work, should work. We didn't test this, but I think it will.
Yep, we see it.
Okay, awesome.
I see it. If anybody doesn't, let us know. But
Can you guys see that all right? Okay, so we're gonna just dive right into this. You may have heard this quotation before: the best camera is the one you have with you. And what I love about the iPhone is, I've been shooting for probably 30 years. And what's great about the phone is you don't have to necessarily think about all of the exposure settings and all of that. Like, it kind of dumbs everything down for you. Not to say, those who use it are idiots. That's not the case at all. But you don't have to think about, f-stops and shutter speeds and all that as much as you would, with your other camera, which can sometimes get in the way of being creative. So having a phone is an awesome way, I think, just to train your eye to see better. And even if you never use the images, or throw most of them away or whatever, it's just a good habit to get in, where you're just seeing the world, I think, in a different way, because that is always with you. So I hope I'll get you to think about all that a little bit differently than you might have thought before. So this was in Hawaii. I was actually taking a workshop several years ago on the island of Molokai. And here we are for a sunrise. And, I've got probably $10,000 worth of gear on the left there. And there I am using my phone. So, I use both, not to say one's better than the other by any means. We just have to remember all of these are tools to help us translate our vision. So that's important. It's not about the technology necessarily all the time. And there are a ton of apps out there. So we have to remember to just try to master a few, because otherwise we'll develop amnesia. So be careful. You can certainly download a bunch, and I have a ton on my phone. I probably only use, maybe a dozen at any given time, if that. Sometimes it's just 2 or 3. But it's a great thing just to pick a few that you love and kind of master those. The top one being Snapseed, like I said. So anyway, so be careful not to develop amnesia. Whoops. I don't know what happened here. See if I can get it to, okay. So here are 6 general tips for using your phone, especially those of you who haven't used it before. So you want to get to know the native camera and its features. And by native camera, I mean the one, that's built into the phone. So there are a bunch of apps out there where you can actually shoot using those apps, but I recommend you just get to know the camera that's in the phone first. So that's number 1 tip. And then you want to just, like I said a second ago, download and master only a handful of those apps first, until you get comfortable with them, and then you can gradually add more. And again, these are just my recommendations based on experience. And then I recommend you set these apps at the highest resolution. And as we go, I'll show you where that is as we go. Sometimes you do it in the app itself, and other times you have to do it in the general settings of the phone. So, and if I've lost any of you already, let me know. I want to try to keep this as basic as we can, but don't want to lose any of you. So you want to also save versions as you work. So you might, make a change to an image and then start doing more stuff. So maybe save it once you've made that one change, and then you'll have different versions that you can work along with. Now with Snapseed, it's a beautiful thing because we don't have to necessarily do that with Snapseed. You can go back in, depending on the way you save the image, and see all the different history of what you've already done to an image. So you do have to save it in a certain way, and I can show you that if you need to know that. I'm not sure if the Snapseed presentation covered that, but that's an important thing to know with Snapseed. And then you want to also, of course, take notes, because there's not really much metadata with this of what you're doing and which app you used and et cetera, especially when you're starting. So just take notes, especially the images you end up loving. And then if you're in low light, it is a good idea to use a tripod if you can. And I'll show you a really cool tripod mount that I love for the phone. But nowadays, especially with the 13, it's got awesome low light capabilities. We were discussing this as people were getting on earlier. So not critical to have a tripod. Sometimes it can really hinder the creativity for sure, even with your big girl or big boy camera. But I do love using it in certain situations if it's really low light. And so you'll just end up, with a lot sharper images. So those are just kind of some tips. Now, these are some tools that you can get, or accessories for the phone. There's this cool little gadget called a pop socket, and you basically just kind of glue it to the back of your case, and usually not directly onto the phone itself. And it just is a handy way to be able to, especially if you're worried about dropping it or losing it as you're photographing something, especially if it involves reaching out, like let's say you have a flower bed or something, or a pond, and you're trying to get something and you don't want to drop it in the water. So that can be fun. You can also prop your phone up using it. And then these are some lenses that I do love. They're real high quality lenses. They're made by a company called Moment, based in Seattle. I actually used to live in Seattle for 10 years before moving here to Colorado. Love the Pacific Northwest. It was just too gray and cloudy though for me to live there. So I've moved after a while, but I do love visiting and teaching there too still. But the Moment lenses are great. You do have to get the case that goes with the Moment lens. So you just have to be aware of that. And they change the case slightly every time a new model comes out, which is kind of, I guess, part of their marketing. But it's a real high quality lens system if you're wanting to go in that direction and are getting super serious about all of this. Do we have a question? I thought no.
No.
Okay.
Good.
So anyway, that's the Moment lenses. Now, it says there to email me with all of this, and you can send me an email. I will send you a link to buy these. I don't sell them directly, but I can send you the link to buy the stuff if you're interested. Now, there's the case for my 13 Pro Max. They are in stock now, finally. And then there's a drop-in lens mount, which they still have not sent me yet. So I can't use the Moment lenses with my current phone yet, but the little drop-in lens mount that you see there on the right is a little plastic thing that you fit inside the case there, and it always lives there. And whenever you're traveling with the phone, it's just there ready for you to mount the lenses. The lenses mount using kind of a bayonet mount. So you just sort of push it straight in and turn it. And it just mounts, and so it's always aligned with the lens, and it's just a beautiful system. So if you want to go there, like I said, you don't even have to have any of this stuff, but I'm just making you aware of it. Now, this kit, I actually do sell this kit. So you can email me. I have a few left. Who knows when the next order is going to come in from China, but it's called the 10-in-1 lens kit. And this is really cool. I will demonstrate it. Do we have a question? I thought I heard something.
I don't think so. Somebody's
okay. So this kit is awesome. So I don't know if you can see, but I have this little handle here, and it's almost like a clothespin. So I can put this over my phone or mount it over the phone if this were my phone. And on the other side of this, you can interchange all of the lenses, and you basically just unscrew the lens and put it right back on the little handle there. So this is a really inexpensive way to just have a lot of lenses at your disposal, and it's a lot of fun to play around with these. The one that I love the best that I wanted to highlight is the one called 15x macro. It will do super close macro if you're wanting to get a little more artistic or abstract with your close-ups. It's a really awesome lens, and I just put that one lens on and walk around with this little thing in my pocket all the time. And it's really fun. And I'll demonstrate that 15x lens for you if you want. But these are some of the other lenses. Whoops, I don't know why this is not wanting to advance every time okay.
Okay, so here's my question. Before you move forward, the mount do you need that mount, universal mount to go with the lenses that you're showing us, or are those?
You don't, that's a good
Mount is for
question.
the other lenses.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
You don't. You could use this on any case you want.
Okay.
Even a OtterBox or, you know, all those cases. As long as the lens is, you know, it has to be, I don't know, an inch or inch and a half from the edge of the phone, which most of the phones are, the iPhone certainly. But it's really just a handy way, you know, of using a large variety of lenses all in one system, so to speak. Now the quality, I have to say, you know, it's not as good as the Moment lenses, but to me, it's more convenient and easier to carry these around. I don't want you to think, oh, this is going to be, you know, Zeiss lenses, but they're certainly fine for most iPhone pictures. You know, I've never noticed that it's not. So, but they have a wide, there's the wide at the top, and the macro that I just described, that 15x macro, so you can see how much magnification it will give you. And then it's got a fisheye lens in there, a telephoto. It even has a circular polarizer, which is crazy, you know, for the phone. And so you can turn that and get some really interesting, you know, polarizations. And then yes.
Just a quick question. So with the 13 Pro and you put the screensaver on, the screensaver comes with a screensaver for the lenses also. If you put that on the lenses, then you wouldn't be able to, right, use the lenses you're talking about.
When you say screensaver, I'm not sure I know what you mean.
Okay, so for the lenses, for the 3 lenses, right?
Right.
There's a screensaver. So you don't scratch it.
Ah, okay. Yeah, well, it will fit in front of that.
Oh.
Because it's clear, right?
Right, yeah, of course, yeah.
So yeah, you would just clamp this over the phone. I can demonstrate it in a minute. And it goes right over the lens. You have to, you know, align it just right, but it'll work.
Okay.
So, but that's a good question. And then, so here's some of the other filters in this kit. There's a flow filter, which I don't know exactly what that does. It looks like it just sort of blurs if you were trying to pan something. And then a radial filter, which, you know, with wildlife, they have an example there, a kaleidoscope type filter, 2 kaleidoscope filters, and then even a star filter, you know.
These lenses work on Samsung or other phones?
They will, yep.
Okay.
As long as the lens is, you know, I think it's an inch or and a half or a certain distance from the phone. I mean, from the edge of the phone,
right.
Which I think 99% of the phones out there have it. So
right.
Anyway, so that's that.
So Charles, one question I had was,
yes,
I noticed some of the effects that you're creating can also be created with camera movement, yet like a zoom, the radial filter, things like that. So this was your way of trying to achieve those effects without having a zoom and other types.
It can be, but stand by, and I'm going to show you actually an app that does that. Which, but cool. That's good. I like the thinking there. So, but yeah, you could mimic the look without
having to do the movement, right?
Right. So now this is the Mi Photo Sidekick, and I love this little thing. I've tried a bunch of different types of tripod holders for phones, and this one's awesome because you can loosen that little knob on the back there, and it'll pivot any direction you want, including straight up even. You know, it'll go straight up. And what's really nice too is if you are still using a tripod with your other camera, you can use the Arca Swiss groove that's on the bottom of this little thing and slide it right in the top of your tripod head. So that's another advantage of this little Mi Photo Sidekick. I think it comes in different colors and all this. But again, like I have this link I'll send you if those of you interested in this stuff. Do we have
Sorry, I just muted you by mistake. Sorry, Charles. Charles, did I get you up?
There. Sorry about
that. Yep. That's okay. I didn't see it by mistake. I was trying to mute the other person because
that's okay. And then we also need to think about, well, you guys don't, if you're going to a colder climate, having tech gloves can help. You know, these gloves allow you to use the phone while wearing the gloves. So, but you guys don't need that.
I'm sorry, there's 3 people that have not muted and there's communication going on in the background and we're hearing all of that over Charles.
I'm trying to.
I don't think, I think they have to mute individually because if you hit mute, you mute Charles too.
Yeah, well, okay, let's see if they can, sounds quiet now.
Okay.
Great, thanks. Anyway, so you guys don't really need these gloves, but I just thought I'd put that in there. All right, so this is the latest and greatest that I have. And so I thought I'd just go over a few of these things without getting too geeky. The 12 megapixel CMOS sensor, awesome sensor. You know, they still need to improve this, but it's getting better and better with each generation of phone. They've got a great display there, you know, the OLED display. None of this really changed from the 12. Anything you see in red on the screen there is an upgrade or a change with the 13 compared to the 12. Now, if you just have, you know, an 11 even, I don't know, maybe you want to wait till the 14 comes out. But if you've got like, you know, a 7 or an 8 or a 9, those, you know, I consider upgrading if you are serious about using the phone as, you know, a camera. I always joke that it's an awesome camera that happens to make phone calls, the iPhone. So anyway, but I'm just one of those weird people that uses it a lot for photography. Now, there are 3 lenses on the 13. There's an ultra wide, a wide, and a telephoto. One thing Apple changed with the 13 is that now the telephoto is a little bit more of a zooming in, so to speak. So you can now get the equivalent of about 77 millimeters zooming in. So it's still not perfect. I wish Apple would put a lot of more R&D into the zooming function on the lens. But that's just the way it is at the moment. I think sometimes the people working on all of this are not photographers. They need to involve photographers in the making changes here. But they also have made the ultra wide a little bit wider on the aperture there, so it collects light, you know, better in low light situations, especially. And the other thing they did with that ultra wide lens is they made it where you can use it to do macro photography. And I will demonstrate that and talk about what my take on it is so far, having practiced with it and so forth. I'm not super excited about it, to be honest. It's great and it's awesome to be able to focus close, but in my opinion, you have to get so close sometimes that you are losing the light that you need on the subject. What I've found in experimenting so far is if you pinch to zoom to about 0.9x, which is, you know, almost the 1x zoom, that is sort of a sweet spot, I think, for getting close-ups. So that's just in my testing so far. And I mean, it hasn't been out that long. And then the other thing is it can distort the subject a little bit if you're trying to do a close-up using the ultra wide lens like that. And sometimes you want that, but sometimes you don't. So that's why pinching it into about 0.9 can help. So now if you have a phone that's previous to this version, you can focus close with the ultra wide or the wide, but you won't be able to focus quite as close. And when I say close, the new 13 can focus 2 centimeters away, which is, I don't know, I can't do the conversion from metric. What is that, an inch?
About an inch, a little less.
Yeah, about an inch. So anyway, so pros and cons, but I love the telephoto, being able to go to 3x zoom, you know, without losing pixels. Now, some of you may have experimented with pinching the telephoto all the way in, and you can do that, but you're going to lose pixels. So, you know, I could get into talking about the difference between optical zoom and digital zoom, but maybe we don't need to go there. But if you
Probably don't
go
need to go there, but maybe they just mention what might happen as a result of that if they try to blow that up again or something.
yeah, so if you were to try to blow that up and you pinched past the 3x, or if you're using like a 12, if you pinched past the 2x on that phone, you're going to see pixelization, and it's the image starts to degrade. And if you were to blow it up, it may not be as good of a quality as you had hoped. So is that good enough description, Bob?
I think so.
Okay, okay.
That's good.
So, and then we've got the 3x zoom. I mentioned that. The deep fusion technology, all that stuff, that's still part of the 12. They started that, I think, with the 12. And then you can shoot RAW. So do any of you photograph with your big girl or big boy cameras using RAW images? Or yeah, okay, so you know what I'm talking about, a few of you. It's going to give you the best quality, I think. You do have to work the image later, though, is the problem. But you could shoot RAW if you wanted to, and Apple has its own sort of proprietary Pro RAW format now. And then the thing, oh, sorry, go ahead.
About that, because I have an experiment with this. So let's say you have a RAW image and you use the auto adjust function inside the native app. Let's say you shoot in RAW versus shooting in a regular JPEG. Is there a difference in quality, even just say taking a RAW versus an initial JPEG captured both ways and then using the auto function, or does it automatically turn it into the finished JPEG that you would have gotten without the RAW? If I just made that too complicated, I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, I understand. Some of you may not have understood his question, but I understand. Basically, I haven't experimented with the auto function, so I don't know.
Okay. I'm curious to see. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. But let me know what you find.
Right. Yeah, I'm going to try that. Yeah.
Still learning about that. Yeah.
Okay.
But I will show, because it's cool for you guys to see that you could shoot with different built-in photographic styles. That's something new with the 13. And then portrait mode is really cool if you're doing, grandchildren or whatever, any sort of people photography, street photography, whatever. It's really cool, and I can show you that if you're not already familiar with it. Some of you may not realize that's right there as part of the native camera. It started with, let's see, that came about with the 7 Plus. So any phone after that has the portrait mode built in there. Now, then I talked about macro, improved low light performance, cinematic video. I don't know how many of you do video, but there's a really cool video feature that I will demonstrate that they now have too on the 13. So any questions about, try not to get too geeky here. Now, these are the specs for some of the Android phones out there now. I mean, if we could have like a Windows sensor in an Apple phone, we'd be in business, and the Zeiss lens and all that. I mean, it's an awesome phone. The problem is there are just not as many app developers making apps, for Android. So I think that's one of the reasons, a lot of people just tend to gravitate to Apple. But again, at the end of the day, it's just a tool to translate your vision. So it really, isn't going to matter too much which one you use. Now, here's portrait mode. Like I said, the 7 Plus or higher, and you can see the nice blurry background there on the right. So if you have this portrait mode, how many, I assume a lot of you that have this have experimented with this. You do have to be about 8 feet from the subject. And what I would do here is just tap those glasses there in this case, and that would be the point that would tell the camera, hey, this is where I want sharp focus, and it'll try and recognize the edges of the rest of that and blur the background, which it did here. So it's pretty cool to have this functionality built into the actual phone. So that's kind of fun. Now with the 10 and up, they have this built-in depth control thing where, so let's say you take the picture, however you take the picture, you just have to take it using portrait mode. Then after the fact, this is amazing. After the fact, you can move your finger on the bottom. You see that f1.4, you just basically move your finger right and left on that little slider on the bottom. And when you do, watch what happens. I'm gonna, whoops, uh-oh. I got to go back. So watch what happens when I just do that. It changes the background. So when you slide it back and forth after you've captured it, that's what's so phenomenal. It's like, wow, this is magic. So that's kind of a cool thing, but you do have to have like the 10 or higher for that. But that's really fun.
That's a great feature if somebody doesn't like the background and that they've taken and they want to blur it out so that it doesn't distract you. From
exactly, if it's too distracting. Yep. And then this is the Pro RAW. Like I said, those of you super serious can do the Pro RAW. If you look in the upper right corner of the phone, you see that RAW right there. There is a way to turn that off so that you don't, use RAW every time you take a picture. But I just got back from fall color in the mountains of Southwest Colorado, and I turned that on for the whole trip because I knew, this is going to be some good stuff that I might want to work on later. So it's a good idea sometimes if you want to turn that on. So that's the RAW thing.
Can I ask you a question about RAW for a second?
Sure.
So I was watching a YouTube, they took me into the settings to turn on RAW.
Right.
But each time you go into the phone, isn't the default RAW off?
Well, once you've changed that, it should permanently change it until you shut it off.
Oh, okay.
But sometimes when you open the phone up, you'll just see it'll have a line going through it, like a slash. And in that case, you just tap it to turn it on.
Right. Thank you.
But if you don't even see RAW in the upper right corner, you have to do that in settings. And I can show you, that was one of the things I was going to do actually, was just show some of the basic settings in the phone to make sure you guys have your phone set properly. So we can do that. Now here's DNG. And so you don't need to know about this if you don't want to get serious about phone photography, but you can use DNG capture in Lightroom Mobile. So Lightroom Mobile is an app. It will sync up with your desktop app if you wanted it to. I personally keep all my phone images in a whole separate ecosphere than my big boy images, because it just gets too confusing to try and merge all of that together into one catalog. That's just me. But you can use Lightroom Mobile. And so Lightroom Mobile has a built-in RAW capture. So if you're using an earlier phone where you can't get RAW from Apple, you could use the Lightroom Mobile app and still be able to shoot RAW that way. But you'd have to process the image using Lightroom Mobile, which is a whole nother learning curve. But if you're already using Lightroom and know Lightroom, then it's not that big of a learning curve. So I don't want to confuse you guys too much, but I just thought I'd throw that in for those of you interested in doing it that way. And then this is one thing that's really kind of fun. This was like from an XS Max phone, but the original image here was pretty small. It was like, 960 by 719 pixels. And it was not a big file either. 120 kilobytes is really tiny. So if I was going to make a big print of this image, that would not be such a great print, So there is a third-party software that Topaz makes called AI Gigapixel. And you can use this as a standalone app. So you don't even have to have Photoshop or Lightroom to use this. It's real simple to use. It has an easy interface. And it uses artificial intelligence technology to add detail and interpolate and kind of blow your image up, so to speak. And you can upscale a photo up to 600%. And I mean, I've tested it, it's amazing. So it could go all the way up to, 80 by 60 if you wanted from a phone. It's available for Mac and Windows. So pretty exciting that we have this technology now.
Quick question on that. So
yeah.
What would you say you have let's say an 11 or later, you're taking a photo with, an image and you say, okay, I'm going to blow this up to a certain size. When would you start to say, you know what, I know that you could do it and see if it looks good, but do you have any type of criteria you use to say, okay, if it's above 11 by 14, I won't even try it with an iPhone image out of camera I'll go ahead and go into Gigapixel or some other program to up, or just give it to a lab and say, I want a bigger picture and let them do the best they can with it. What do you do with that?
Yeah, usually that's a good question. Usually if I'm going anything like maybe 16 by 20 or higher, you know, even 20 by 30, I'll try this on an image that's going to be that big, 20 by 30, but maybe not on the 16 by 20. I'd try it first. So that's generally, you know, the range. Now I haven't done it with the 13. So maybe I don't need to, you know, do it with that. Maybe I could do a 20 by 30 straight out of the phone. I haven't
But you
tested
feel like
that
you
yet.
can go that high, even with that's pretty high. I've never, because I've never
Maybe,
done that.
I don't know. I have
Yeah.
no idea. I'm
No,
just
no, I mean,
speculating.
the most I've ever done is like an 11 by 14. So
Right. Yeah, you're probably pretty safe going about that big, but you could experiment and see, you know, the before and after and see what you think.
Sure.
But so this
that
was
Gigapixel app actually made it sharpen and it did that.
yeah, isn't that amazing? Like there's the original on the left.
Because it's not even sharp in the original.
I know. And it did that. And that's just upscaling it 4 times. And watch what happens when it goes up 6 times. Amazing. You know, that's what we would get on the left if you didn't use the software. So anyway, and then I think there's another slide in here. Well, no, that was it. So 6 times. I didn't go further than that.
Wow.
But it's pretty dramatic.
Is that a free app or do you pay by the month for that app? Like,
I'm pretty sure you just pay the $100 once, and then you're eligible for all the upgrades and, you know, when if they start coming out with different versions. So, but there's the URL, you know, where you can get it. It's from Topaz Lab. So, and it's nice that you don't have to use it as a plugin in Photoshop. You know, it's a standalone type app.
Sorry, I missed that $100.
Yeah, no, that's okay. It's a lot to take in here. All right, so moving right along. Now, what I wanted to do here, I'm going to shift gears just a little bit and just to show you how I use my phone. So I was just like in an art gallery and okay, yeah, this is somebody else's art, but I would never, you know, sell this image or anything, but it's just training my eye, you know, like seeing something, making a composition, trying to see, there's basically, I kind of had this phrase that, and it's basically the fact that there's art in your life, you know, there's art everywhere and it's all around you. You don't have to even go out of your home. I was making artichokes one day and this was what I saw in the pot as it was boiling. So, you know, olive oil and water. This was a circulon type pot. Those of you that know pots. So that's where those those concentric lines are coming from, but total accident. But I was awake and I was aware and I was noticing and my eyes were trained, you know, so that's the magic of the phone to me, is just allowing you to see what's there, and you may not necessarily see it if you don't have the phone with you. This is nothing more than 2 plastic cups turned upside down on a piece of white paper, you know, and like I think there happened to be a lamp next to it or whatever. I didn't set that up, you know, with much complexity. It just happened. So that's the fun of doing. Pardon?
It creates a great abstract because you don't
really
exactly because you don't really know where that came from, what it is, you know.
Right, totally out of context. Yeah. So, you know, if nothing else, and like I said, I may never do anything with these, but it's giving me personal pleasure, and that's what's fun. Now, this was, I don't know, probably my iPhone 6, like way back, many generations, and I pinched and pinched and pinched to zoom in here, and it's horrible. I probably should run it through Topaz to make it much better. But this is what my eye saw. You know, this was in Seattle. Of course, that's a Space Needle. And I was walking in this sculpture park nearby. And as I walked by, it caught my eye like, oh, you know, there's the replication of or duplication of that circular shape. And so it's training your eye. That's what a lot of this really is. Or another day, you know, it rains almost all the time in Seattle. So I'm walking back from the post office to my car and I looked down and there was this leaf and, you know, I saw all the the multicolors and whatever. And so that was kind of fun, and it caught my eye doing that. So there's art in your life, no matter where you go. And this was just a leaf floating by in a swimming pool. I mean, I didn't set that up or anything. I kind of call this wabi sabi. And that's all that was. But if I hadn't been, awake and my eyes weren't looking for things or, whatever. And a lot of times the subject will find you if you're open to it and, noticing. So that's what's bringing joy in photography that may be lost sometimes, if you feel like you're in a rut. And then another time I was at an art fair, and this guy had these really cool kaleidoscopes, and I couldn't get my 200 millimeter macro lens on my Nikon in the eyepiece of that kaleidoscope. So I just took the phone and just put it right up again. I asked the guy first, of course, and put it right up against the eyepiece. And, so you can make images you couldn't necessarily always make if you had your other camera nearby. And then I decided, hey, I'll do the movie function. And I, made a little movie while I turned the kaleidoscope. So it's just really fun doing this. Or another time I was walking out of a movie theater and all of the neon lights, were reflecting in the water there. I did not need a tripod with that. And the phone used a fast enough shutter speed there where it froze the motion of that water and made this really cool abstract pattern. So, if you want to start doing a lot of abstracts, this is one way to go for sure, is using the phone for this kind of thing. This was, believe it or not, in a restroom. They had, I was at a botanical garden, but they had this really cool glass, and there was a leaf that happened to be, resting up against the glass. So I made an image, it was right by the sink, so I could do it without too many people noticing. Anyway, so it's just really fun. Or this was at also at the Denver Botanical Garden, actually, was where this was. And, I was shooting flowers there a lot, but then I looked over and there was this really cool, door that had all this paint, and it was weathered, so again, another abstract that I was able to capture because I had the phone with me. And then
by the way, these are all super great, especially for the few of us that like to paint, like Eric Sobel and I.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, exactly. And you can use this for reference if you're a painter, reference for your paintings a lot of times too.
That's great.
Now, this is the Experience Music Project building in Seattle. And this was an old app. I don't think it's even around anymore. And I'm not sure we need this app anymore because the built-in HDR with the phone is amazing. But it was an app that would do HDR called Vivid HDR. So that was with the iPhone 6. And then this spring, I'm going to be going to Holland, hopefully. It's been postponed twice. This is a phenomenal garden. If you don't go with me, try and get there yourself. It's an amazing place. It's called Keukenhof, and it's just outside Amsterdam, and they're only open about 6 or 8 weeks out of the year. And it's just bulbs everywhere, not even just tulips. They have hyacinth and, all kinds of other bulbs too. But it's just a beautiful place. And so I feel lucky to be able to teach there. And then one time I was walking along the strip in Vegas, and I decided, this was after live photo had just come out. And live photo basically takes a real short movie clip right before you take the picture and after you've snapped the picture. So here's a little movie clip, and what you can do is later go in and make that movie clip loop, like repeat itself. So here's the clip. Did you see that? I don't know if you need me to replay that again. There it is. So you can, make your photos animated if you want it, using that live photo feature. And then don't forget the panoramic functionality of the phone. This was using the pano, but I did a vertical panorama in this case instead of a horizontal one. You know how most panoramas, you move the phone right to left or left to right. Well, actually, I was laying on the floor here. I waited till people cleared out. This is a museum in Seattle. Some of you may have been there. It's called the Chihuly Museum. And they have this wonderful ceiling that's backlit, of all of his glass. And so I laid on the floor with the phone, no tripod, of course, and just made a panorama going up and down instead of right or left. And that's how I was able to get that image. So lots of fun. And then,
Wait
things
a
like this.
second. You
Oh,
can do
sorry, go ahead, what?
panoramic up and down?
You can do a vertical panorama. Yeah. So like if you have a skyscraper or, a really tall building, yeah, or even a tree, you can
I
try it.
never knew it went up and down.
Yeah, I can show you if you're interested in that. So, yep, that's really fun. Has anybody tried that before?
Nope.
No? Okay.
No.
I use the sideways panoramic
I
all the
know.
time, but I
And
never
also,
knew.
I don't know, did you know when you go sideways, you don't always have to go left to right. You can go right to left too if you
No,
want.
I didn't know that either.
Yeah, you have to tap the arrow and it makes it switch.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So, and same thing with the vertical. You could go from top to bottom or bottom to top by, tapping that little arrow. So tons of fun. And then I don't know if any of you have played around with time-lapse video, but this is a video I made of this guy making ice cream. And I didn't even have a tripod. I just, rested the phone on the counter and he, allowed me to do this. And it's just fun to be able to do time-lapse videos like that. So that's another way of, trying things. And then this is our cat Poppy, and I was playing with the laser pointer with her, and this is doing a slow-mo video. So watch what you can see, like her head is not in sync with the laser pointer. So anyway, just fun type things with slow-mo that you can try. Anyway,
Cool.
It's so much fun playing with the laser pointer with cats, right? Those of you that have cats. So that's that. Now, these are some of my favorite apps. These are certainly not all of the ones, and I don't have time to really demonstrate all of these to you guys, but I'm going to show you some images that I made with these. Now, I'm going to try to demonstrate at least a couple of these for you, but I want to just at least expose you to images that are possible with some of these various apps. And again, there's so many out there. But these are just 6 that, or 9, sorry, that I decided I would throw up here and talk about. So if you have an Android phone, I will be showing the equivalent in these slides. So not to worry, those of you that shoot Android. Now, we've already talked about Snapseed. I don't think I need to really read all of that, but it is a great app for doing basic editing. And again, if you don't learn any other app, learn and master Snapseed. It's really awesome. And I've been doing during the pandemic some one-on-one tutorials with people. If you're interested, where like show my phone on the screen or your phone on the screen and help you, do this live, one-on-one. So if you're interested in that type of thing, I do offer that also. And then this is just to show you how Snapseed is really powerful. So this is just the before on an image, and there's the after. So, it's a little more saturated, a little more contrast. You got to be careful not to oversaturate things, but you can see how that's way better than the one that came right out of the camera. There's, the two side by side. So pretty big difference there. And then this one, I was in a plane, flying somewhere, and that's the view from my seat. And then after giving it a little love and Snapseed, I was able to, make it punch more contrast. So it's the basic editing app, basically, is what you need to remember about Snapseed. And you guys have probably already had enough of Snapseed after your last presentation, but I just wanted to show you. Now, this one, you see those little black spots on the image? There's an app that will get rid of all those little black spots. Now, you can do it in Snapseed, but if you have trouble in Snapseed, you can use the app that's called Touch Retouch. And I don't know if you guys, did anybody demonstrate that?
Yes.
Okay, they did.
That was
cool.
last time, but.
All right,
yep.
that's awesome.
Yeah.
Great. Okay.
It is great.
So there it is, cleaned up without all the little black spots and so forth. So big difference there. And then here's another one. Brought this into Snapseed. This was a winery in Tuscany. I'm actually going to be in Tuscany next spring. If anybody's interested, I've got openings for that trip. Some people just bring an iPhone on that trip. But anyway, this is what it is after. So again, you know, a little more saturation, a little more contrast, a little bit of sharpening, that sort of thing. And this is that leaf image I showed you before, you know, straight out of the phone. And then there it was cleaned up. So, you know, it's pretty powerful doing Snapseed, as you can tell. And then this is another thing too, that I don't know if you had time to realize this the last time when the Snapseed demo was shown, but this was landing in Salt Lake City, and you see all the, you know, corners down there at the bottom. You got all the vignetting from the window of the plane. Well, there's a content aware type thing in Snapseed where boom, there it is. You know, it filled it in on those two lower corners for me. So that's kind of another thing to remember about Snapseed. It can
content aware.
Yes, so it's called content aware, to steal Adobe's terminology, where it uses, I guess, I don't know, what do you think, Bob, artificial intelligence to kind of fill all this in?
Yeah, it has to. I guess it looks at the pixels next to it.
Yeah.
Says, okay, let's make something similar.
Right. So you see what it did, you know, on those bottom two corners. Pretty amazing. So and otherwise, you know, I would have either had to crop that or just toss it out as a, you know, bad image. So things like that, it does well. And then you saw this one. I'll show you the before and after on this. It's subtle, a little more subtle on that because those flowers were already really nicely saturated. So now this is a really fun one. This is probably the best dollar you'll ever spend. Yeah, highly addictive, this app. Has anybody used this one? It's called Average Camera Pro. And I'm going to demonstrate this one for sure for you. This is one where you can do multiple exposures. So you basically just tell it how many photos you want to do, and you point it at the subject and say, go, and it layers all those photos on top of each other into one photo. So it's pretty remarkable, all the way up to 128 if you wanted to. I've never tried that many. So that's one way of making kind of painterly images using your phone. It is a shooting app as opposed to a post-processing app. So I think you guys understand the difference when I say that. This is one you would actually make the image using the app, using that app and its camera, so to speak.
What's amazing about that, I just wanted to say, is that if you tried to do that in Photoshop and take all those photos and then do composites or put them all together and try to make it, this is a phone app that does all, it's amazing.
Yeah, it saves hours of time.
Wow.
Yeah. So I love this one. And there's an Android equivalent called MEC, which stands for multiple exposure camera. And I've put pictures here or thumbnails of these different apps so that you can see what they look like. Because when you go into the App Store, I think you're going to need to spell out Average Camera Pro like that. But the icon's going to look like that, but it's going to come up shortened. It might say AVG, whatever. But just make sure you get the one that has the little icon like what you see on the screen there. So that's really fun. Only $1. Now, here's a few images that were made using that app. And again, I'm going to demonstrate it for you live so you can see, but it makes stuff, you know, look sort of painterly, really fun. So then this is another one that's really handy. So if you're trying to blur water, you know, if you want to do, or clouds, anything where you would be blurring water, or even tail lights of cars, you know, if you're doing that kind of thing, this is $2 for this one. And I'll demonstrate this for you too. And it's a lot of fun. You can set it to do bulb, which means you determine how long it's going to go, or you can set it to do, you know, 5 seconds, 10 seconds, whatever. And it's really fun with motion, especially. So that's these two, this one and the Average Camera Pro, I for sure want to demonstrate to you. So this was in London in the underground, and I had myself against the wall so that I could be, you know, keep my elbows in and try and stay still. I didn't have a tripod with me. And of course, she didn't know I was there, but because the train was arriving, you get the blur of the train, but she stayed still. right? So fun types of creative things you can do with that slow shutter app or slow shutter cam. Now you guys can try this on either a sunrise or a sunset if you want to make something a little more abstract or painterly. All I did here was just take the phone and hold it and this was a sunset, and just kind of rocked it back and forth gently, like not a lot. That's the thing with these apps, like a little motion goes a long way. And that made the blur there, that app, using that app. And so it gave it kind of a painterly quality. So lots of possibilities using this slow shutter thing, or trees or foliage, things like this. You may have seen images like this and you can do this with your big boy or big girl camera for sure. But it's so fun in the phone to try it, where it just layers all the images.
When you get to the demo, could you just show about how much movement? Because I think it's hard to realize exactly what you're saying, like
yeah, exactly,
whatever. Just an idea. Yeah. Give us an idea. Great.
For sure. Yep, absolutely. Remind me,
Sure.
Now here's another one. I don't know if any of you do real estate photography or anything like that, but if you want to show a 360-degree panorama of something, whether it's a scene or a room or whatever it is, this is kind of a fun app. It is a little more pricey. We're talking $8 here. We're getting really spendy here. Anyway, this one though is a lot of fun for making a 360-degree panorama. And there's all kinds of output options and whatever, but I'll just show you. So this was in California when there was a super bloom of poppies. And so you can see how, here's the movie, watch the movie version. So it creates like this little movie, and it goes all the way around the whole scene. So that's fun, especially if you're trying to do real estate, right? So many of you are doing real estate. This is really fun. Or a scene like this to give people a little bit of a sense of where you are. So even those people, it froze the action of them moving. So now it gets a little messy here. That's not a fire. That's what it did to the edge there. So I don't know, you have to clean it up sometimes. And then there's a way that it creates, you can tell it to create a URL. So you could send somebody this link, and then when they click the link, it would also play the panorama. But this is another 360-degree panorama. This was in Southern California. And again, a movie of that scene. So I've never tried to print one of these, but I'm sure you could. It's sort of like, how do you make a print of a 360-degree panorama? But you do, I guess it's just longer than a normal panorama would be. But anyway, so that's kind of that app. And then, there's the URL that it created. Now, if I wanted to do something and have a little more control over all the things like shutter speed and aperture and all of that in my phone, I might look to using this app called Camera Plus 2. And I haven't experimented a lot using it in that way, but I have used the macro capability in this. It has a macro shooting mode that's kind of fun, but I haven't used it with the 13 yet to see whether it does better than what the macro is that they have in the 13. But I'll just show a few that were made using the macro mode in that app. And this was before the 13 came out. But I mean, phenomenal sharpness and detail in an image and this was handheld, like our phones are amazing. This also was handheld, amazing sharpness and detail. So that's nothing more than a leaf on a car window. That's all that is, with I did enhance the color of the sky a little bit, but so again, there's art in your life. Oh, another fun place before I forget it to make photos with your phone is the car wash. Next time you go through the car wash, have your phone up against the windshield, and it's so much fun. You get all kinds of abstracts of, they have colors in those chemicals sometimes. Anyway, doesn't take much to entertain me. Now here's Artista Impresso, and this one is sort of a one-trick pony. Like, you pick a style, an artistic style, and then it basically just overlays that style on top of your image. You don't lose the original, And it is available as a standalone desktop editing application too for $20. But if you just want the app, it's $5. And there's a whole series of Painterly apps. There's another one that's kind of like oil painting and whatever, that's made by the same company that makes this one. It's a company called Jixi Pix. But anyway, this one is fun, and it's got all kinds of different, you can control the bristles and the depth of the paint, and all kinds of fun things with this. This was from Monet's garden, and I tried to bring back the sharpness of the bridge, but make the foliage around it more Monet-like or painterly. So lots of fun. This is the view out of our backyard. The other thing about this particular app is if you have a low quality image, and let's say you did pinch in beyond 2x or 3x, you could salvage an image like that and do something like this to it, and it's still okay. You still might want to up-res it, using that AI gigapixel, but it's a way to use images that you may think are throwaway otherwise. Now, this one's really complicated to explain how to use, but if you ever wanted to learn it, there's probably YouTube tutorials and whatever, but it's called Distressed FX. And now they have a Distressed FX Plus, and it's all kinds of masking and layering, and it's a little more advanced. So I don't know if you want to try this one just yet, but these are just a few that I made using Distressed FX. So it basically is adding textures to your image. So if you have an image that has a lot of negative space around it, like a boring white sky or whatever, you can add the texture to it. And this one was out at Joshua Tree National Park, and that's not me, it's a guy that happened to be in just the right spot there. And so I just applied the texture, to the image using that app. And there's even birds. It has birds in there too. You can put fake birds in your skies and make them
Did you
bigger.
add the moon?
The moon was there, believe it or not. Yeah, in this
I
particular
have
one.
used the apps with adding the birds and the moons and stuff.
Yeah. So there are apps like that too. Exactly. This is another one where this is not far from our house here in Colorado. You can get textures, in like boring skies, like I said. So a lot of fun. Now, this one is pretty easy to use. You guys might be interested in this one. So this is one where you can just do this, while you're watching television or something. It'll transfer the color from one photo to the next. And you never know what you're going to get, but it's called Color Thief. And again, like I'm trying to just show you, here's the smorgasbord of apps. Like I would just master a couple of these. You're never going to be able to do all of this at once. But just to expose you to what's possible. So with this app, you can see there where, it applies the painterly type treatment, but it stole that color. Like that pink you see there was not in the scene originally. It was from another image that was in my camera roll that had those tones of pink in it. So it's a fun one just to experiment. Same with this one. The colors of that flower were not like that. This was a frozen flower that I did in the backyard one winter. But then, the color is not what was there. And then this bathtub, here, that color was not there, but that orange is coming from another image that, so Color Thief is fun. You're not always going to like what you see, but it's fun to just swipe and see what you get, and that's why I say do it in front of the TV or something, because you just swipe and, it shows you the image as you go. Now this one also is pretty complicated, so I probably won't demonstrate it, but I just wanted you to be aware. This is one where you can blend images together, and it does have masking capabilities, and it's got different blending modes if you're familiar with that from Photoshop, but it's pretty fancy, and it's a way to combine images together that you already have in your camera roll. Or you can use the Average Camera Pro app that I talked about, where you would just do it live in your camera and not have to worry about using Image Blender. The equivalent for Android, just want to make sure I mention, Ultimate Photo Blender Mixer, I think is the one that I've found that comes closest to what Image Blender does. But these are just a few that I made using Image Blender, where the texture is coming from a totally different image than the flower itself. Same here, that blue background was not the way I shot that, it's coming from another image, and you can mask, where I masked the flower so that it wouldn't have the texture on top of the flower, but just the background. So those if you enjoy like image compositing, it's a fun one. There's Poppy again. What were you gonna say, Bob, or somebody had a? No, okay.
Looks great.
Anyway, yeah, I mean, that was not the background with her, so anyway, lots of fun. All right, so any questions before I switch gears for a second here? And I wanted to, hook my phone up and show you some stuff. And if you don't have your phone with you, you may want to grab it and have it nearby, because I'm going to talk about some of the settings that you might want to make sure are set correctly in your phone and that sort of thing, if any of you are interested.
The only question that came up was just put the demo with, if you could demo the vertical pano technique, because I guess it may not be that readily, when you look at it, you may do something, just turn it on. I'm not sure, I never used it, so.
Okay, sure, absolutely.
Sure.
All right, so let me try. I'm going to stop sharing for a second, and let me see if I can get the phone to come up. Hopefully this worked when I practiced earlier. Okay, it's hooked up. Let me see. Hold on here. Zoom can be quirky sometimes. Well, I see it, but it won't. I may have to use, there's a way to use QuickTime to do this. Hang on here.
Sure.
Oh, wait a minute. Now it's working the way it was supposed to work. So we're going to use Zoom. See if I can get it now. I did trust the computer. You have to say trust the computer, Huh. All right, we'll go back to using QuickTime. Let's see. I wonder if sometimes these outlets or cables are acting up.
If anybody else had any questions, you could just type them in the chat, then we could always do it right after the demo.
There we go.
Yeah.
Can you see the phone now?
Yep, we can. We can see it.
Great. Okay. All right. So I was going to just go over, do you think, what do you think would be most useful, Bob? I was going to talk about some of the settings.
Emails?
Yeah, I know. Don't pay me attention. I promise I've read all the important ones. What do you think would be, I wanted to talk about the settings and show, live photo and portrait if people wanted to see that, but I think people know about those two.
The settings we kind of covered last time. I think
okay.
We have a recording on that. So I think that's probably okay. So maybe a demo of the portrait mode or the live photo, something like that. If you have that,
okay,
we do with that. Although I think we may have covered a little bit of that last time, but that's fine.
Okay, yeah. So if I want to do live photo, portrait. So I like to keep my camera, in the upper right area there. So you see my camera at the top. So if I tap the camera here, and I'm going to try not to make you dizzy. If this flower were a person, I could do portrait mode with that, but I would have to technically be 8 feet away from it. And the way I would have to do that, though, is you see at the bottom there where it says photo that's highlighted in yellow. If I slide my finger and go over to portrait so that portrait is highlighted, that's what's going to give me that blurry background. So if I were trying to do this, if this were like a portrait, I would tap my subject, and you see it's still not getting it as sharp, but you got to be further away. It keeps saying move further away, right? So, all right, there, did you see how it popped into place? The yellow came up at the bottom there.
There it is.
So there it is. So I just took the picture, right? So just imagine that's a person instead of a flower. Now, if I bring that photo up,
and you were tapping on the screen as you're doing that because you want to tap on the subject so that it knows what you're trying. You typically would know because if it's just a person or something, but you know, you never know sometimes.
Yeah, exactly. So you want to tap on what it is you want sharp or what your subject is. So I tapped there, and you can see it did a pretty good job of finding those edges. You know, it does funky things if you have somebody with wild hair or that kind of thing. But what's really amazing is if I now take my finger and swipe, whoops, which way do I have to, is it? Okay, I have to go out here and say edit. You see edit at the bottom there. So there's all kinds of lighting that they've got built in here. So you see that little box. I wish I had a pointer on the screen. I don't, but you can see the little package at the bottom, the little yellow package. If I move across here, there's different kinds of lighting that you can apply to the subject. So there's a different one, contour light, stage light, that can be dramatic. You know, different types of lighting. Okay, so I could apply those to the image. If I decide I want to use one of those, let's say the stage light, I can just say done, but it still saves the original. So I don't have to just use that lighting mode. But that's the lighting modes that are built into portrait. But what I was going to show you was how you can do the sliding across where you change the depth of field. So you see in the upper left corner, it says f4.5. So if I tap that, it brings up this little scale at the bottom. You see that scale along the bottom. And now I can take my finger and move that and see what it's doing. It blurs the background or makes it sharp. So after the capture, that's what's so cool, that you can do this after you've taken the picture. So any questions about that? Does anybody? It's fairly straightforward, but you just have to remember where to find these little controls.
Yeah, the question I had was if you're 8 feet away, but you go with a 3 telephoto in there, does that work on portrait? I don't know. You can't go.
I don't think so. I think you have to, well, I don't know. Let's try it.
1-to-1, I think, right?
Yeah, let's try it. If I were to, oh, see, yeah, it is on. I can change that from 1x to 3x. I sure can. But now I got to move. But see it, yeah, so it's giving me a little bit more telephoto view of it.
Right.
But that's not dramatically different than the other one was.
No. Okay.
So yeah, good question. Good to know. And then the live photo thing, you have to be in photo mode. See down there, photo mode. So we're out of portrait mode, now in photo mode. If I want to do live photo, and this probably annoys a lot of you because you don't know why it's happening. In the upper right corner, there's the little bullseye thing. Mine has a line through it. But if I tap that, see it? It makes it go live, okay? Live photo. And now, basically, if I take a picture, let's say I just happen to be moving a little bit, and I take a picture while I'm moving. Once I bring that image up, it's storing video in that image, and you see the word live up there in the upper left corner. So if I tap there, I can choose to loop it or bounce or whatever. So let's just say loop and see what happens if it does anything. So it's creating a little video of that movement to loop it. Okay, so that's the way I did that shot in Vegas, you know, that I showed you. This is a really crude, bad example, but you get the idea. If I want to bounce, I could choose bounce, you know, and it bounces, loops the video in that way. And then long exposure, that blurs the image. So this is one way, you know, to get creative with your exposures if you wanted. But again, these are all just overlays, and it saves the original no matter what you choose. So
And Charles, you can also select one of those. It's just like a video, how you can go into a particular picture within the video and select it and use just that too, right?
yes, that's another thing. If you wanted to pick a frame from that
I'm
video,
sorry, yeah, frame of the video, because it's just still a video. You can pick that
exactly.
one frame that, yeah. So it's a
Yep,
good,
if you wanted. So
Right.
I don't know if any of you are interested in doing that, but it's possible to do that.
right.
Now, the other thing too, that's kind of interesting to show with the 13, if I tap the top little arrow that's facing up, and now it's facing down and it's yellow. If I go along here, there's some additional sort of icons that you see there. The first one is just your flash. It tells you whether the flash is on. The second one is your live view. That's another place to turn live view on or off, or live photo, I guess. I shouldn't say live view. And then this third one, though, this is interesting. If I tap this third one, I can customize the way the camera shoots. So right now it's on standard, but if I swipe, I can do something that has rich contrast or something vibrant. I typically just shoot with standard, but see how that warmed the subject up a little bit? It shoots warm and then it shoots cool. So you can change the way you're shooting if you wanted, by tapping that little icon. Looks like a filing cabinet or something. So that's worth noting, that you have these shooting modes, but they're also available in the post-processing too. If you tried to use Apple's built-in photo processor, you can change it there too.
But Charles, if you do it here, you could still change it later, right? It's still not.
Yes.
Yeah. So
Yes, definitely worth
If you
mentioning.
do
Yeah,
it
you
before
can
the
change
shot,
it
you can
later.
still, you can still.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let me just make sure there wasn't any other major. Oh, okay. One other thing, and then I will do the vertical pano thing I wanted to show you. Let me go back here. So if I wanted to do some cinematic video, you go all the way over here to not video, but cinematic. You see cinematic. So watch, let's see, I'm going to try and rearrange here just a little bit. I'm going to put this flower next to my monitor. So if I
Real
wanted,
quick,
now we're crooked. Sorry, what's that?
Bob, when you get a chance, there's 2 questions on the chat to ask.
Okay.
Charles.
Okay. Do you want to ask those now, or do you want?
Well, the first one doesn't relate to what we're working on right now. It was with regard to the vertical pano. And but the second one is, do you know if the things you're working on with the iPhone are on the iPad, Mac, laptop too?
Yes, so a lot of these apps are available for the iPad as well. And I'm not sure about desktop, because, you know, they've designed these for mobility, like mobile devices, but for sure on the iPad. And so that's a workflow. Some people work on their images on the iPad rather than the phone if they want a bigger screen, but they do the capture part, you know, using the phone. So
Cool.
hopefully that answers that.
Sure.
Now this cinematic video, let me just, so I'm gonna demonstrate this. So, oh shoot, it's sideways. Okay, we'll just make a vertical movie. Actually, I'm going to turn this to back to 1x. So let's say I'm panning across and in my video here, and I want sharpness on this flower. And watch what happens though when I pan to the right. Wait, actually I have to shoot it. Hello. Okay, you press the button and now we're recording a video. And as I go to the right here, see how it made the stuff in the background sharp, or like here, it's gonna focus on this wall, but then it's gonna make what's in the background sharp as you pan across. That's a really bad demo, but you see kind of the idea with that cinematic video.
Sure.
I haven't played a lot with it, but it's fun to try that if you're wanting to really get into video. Questions about that? Or, and again, that's only on the 13th.
So if you're doing some of the pictures that you showed and you are moving your camera a little bit in some of the photos to get a painterly look or feel to it,
right?
You just show like, I mean, the kind of movement, just one example. If you want to, whatever, vertical,
sure,
whatever you want to show,
Yeah, absolutely. Let me go out of here, and because that was what I was getting ready to do, was show you the two apps I mentioned. The one that's the average camera.
Right.
This is going to blow you away. So the average camera. Oh, and this is a really, like, this is worth the price of admission today, maybe, or maybe not. If you're struggling with how the heck do I find that app? Where is it? And you're swiping, oh my gosh, where is it? Here's a real easy, quick shortcut to find an app. You basically just take your finger, and between the top row and the second row of your apps, you swipe down like that, and it brings up this little search thing. And then you can type the name of so let's say I was looking for Snapseed. So I would just type in SNA, and boom, there it is. So that saves like a lot of time trying to find your apps. I don't know, did somebody tell you that yet, or maybe not?
I don't remember if we had it.
Okay, well, that's a really, really
including, yes, we did learn some suture, including in your photos, how to search for a particular photo.
Yes. You can use the map.
That was a real eye opener.
You can even use the map too, if you wanted. Yep.
A question also someone's asking is if you can demonstrate how to use the slow motion.
Yes, so I'm going to do the two Painterly type apps right now. But the first one I want to use is that multiple exposure one, the one that's called Average Camera Pro. So I'm going to swipe down, and instead of typing it, there it is. I see it in the lower left there, Av Cam Pro. So I'm going to tap that. And now that takes me into the camera, okay, for that app. Now, I set up this easel with this scene, pretend we're in a garden kind of idea, just to show you what's possible with something like this. So it's hard for you to see the movement, but I will do my best so that you can still get a sense of how much I'm moving the phone. So on this one, I guess I don't want to make you dizzy. I could turn it on its side, but I'm going to walk closer and fill the frame with this, okay? And, pretend we're in a garden. And basically, before I do it though, I should probably talk about the settings. So in the bottom right, you see the word settings. So if I tap that, that brings up all these different settings. So the top row is how many pictures that you want to make. So in this case, I'm going to leave it on 8 just because it's going to be fun to show you 8. Then the second row is the shooting interval. In other words, how many seconds do you want in between each of your 8 shots? So I'm going to leave that at 1 second. Then the next row is the pre-start timer, and that's how many seconds you want to go by before you start doing all of this. So I've just got it set to 1 second. Okay, you could set that higher if you wanted. And that means, get ready. Now we're going to do this. So those are the settings. So if I tap settings again, it makes it go away. That's how you get rid of settings. And that's the main stuff you got to know about the settings in there. So now watch what happens. And I'm going to turn the volume of my phone on because it's easier to hear the 8 shots. You may not hear it, but I can. And I'm just going to move the phone ever so slightly, like hardly any, like you see my hand. I don't know if you can see my hand on there. if you look at me. It's hardly any, okay? So watch what happens here. Here we go. This will be 8 shots. Let me get some of these flowers in there. Okay. Here we go. You see, it's hardly any movement. And you can see the overlay as it's doing it, right? And there's the final image. I mean, it's not great, but you see the idea of what we're doing.
And I guess
And if you tap the screen, it allows you to kind of move around and like, this is cool. Look what happened. That looks like a painting, you know, to me. So that's how that one, did that help, Bob, at all?
Yeah, I think so. I think, well,
Okay.
I think it's like a lot of experimentation, right? I mean, you go this, you try it a little bit, you see what effect it creates. And then
Exactly.
play
Yeah.
with it. Yeah.
And then, you know, if you like it, then you would tap the save button in the lower right corner there. You know, there's like a save button and it would save it. So that's the general quick and dirty way of using the average camera pro. So I'm going to disregard that. And now if we go back into slow shutter, so there's the other one, slow shutter. You see that on the top left there. So I'm going to tap that icon and we might as well use the same scene here just to see what it does differently. So if I go in there, again, this is a shooting app. Okay. You know, it's not one where you would do post-processing on an image. So this has a little cogwheel. Usually the cogwheel means settings. So you see that little cogwheel on the left at the bottom. So I'm going to tap that. And these are the different settings that you can do on here. I usually leave it on low light, but if you wanted to do like car tail lights or something like that, you could try light trail. And motion blur works as well. And again, it's just experiment with what works for you. I always leave noise reduction all the way up. So slide that all the way up to high. And then under shutter speed, right now I have it on bulb, but if I take my finger and slide it to the left, I can do, you know, medium, low. Oh, sorry, that's noise reduction. I'm sorry. Under noise reduction, I leave that all the way up. Under shutter speed, you see it's got like 30 seconds, 8 seconds, you know, 2, 1, half a second, quarter second. So you can experiment with that too. So let's just go for, I don't know, 4 seconds just to show you. And then under ISO, I almost always just leave that all the way to the left because that's your auto setting on that. So with this, and if I tap the cog wheel again, makes it go away. Okay. So with this one, instead of doing the little tiny movements, I'm going to just kind of move across like this, back and forth. So you don't want to go too fast, but you see what's happening during those 4 seconds. And that's the image that you can get with that. Now that's with me moving, but you can also do it if there's a subject moving, you know, where you're still, but the subject's moving, like I did with the London Underground shot. So does that make sense?
Sure.
Okay. So lots of fun on that one. You would hit save and that saves it to the camera roll and then just say clear in order to get it back to start a new shot. So that's a lot of fun and real easy to use. So those two in particular, I think are really fun for you guys to experiment with. Now you wanted to also see the vertical panorama. Somebody did. So I hadn't planned this, but we'll see how it works. If I go all the way over to pano, okay, there's my pano. So, you know, you can go right to left and that's fine. But if I wanted, and to switch, tap the white arrow, right? And now I can go the other way, okay? So depends which side you might want to start from. So that's, and then the other really cool thing with the 13 is, and when I was in Southwest Colorado doing a lot of that fall color, I used this quite a bit. You can tap the 3 on there. In other words, you know, zoom in to 3x. And now we can do a pano that's zoomed in, you know, more telephoto and still get really good high resolution. So that's something new with, the 13. But I'm going to put it back to 1 just so for simplicity. So if I wanted to do a vertical pano, let's say, I had a really tall person standing here or a building or whatever, skyscraper, you would basically need to turn the phone this way. It's going to make you dizzy. But on my screen, it's now going up the arrow. Or if I tap it, now the arrow is coming down. So it's really just a question of the way you orient the phone to get it to do the vertical pano. I don't want to make you dizzy. I mean, I could shoot it, but you want me to shoot it?
Yeah, it's up to you. Yeah, sure. Let's see.
Okay, so here we go. Whoa. So you gotta make sure the arrow stays close to the yellow line as you go along. All right, so let's see if that, not great, but it is a vertical shot as opposed to, horizontal. Is that, it's really bad.
No, we just have to play with it and see.
Yeah, you get the idea though is the important thing. If I were standing up, I wouldn't have had that distortion, but I was sitting down doing it, just from my chair, but.
Okay. And then,
Anything else that people?
the demo of slow motion was the last one I see on here. That's
Okay,
just
so
sitting on the camera app, right? Yeah.
right. All right, so if I go into the camera and instead of pano, we're going to switch now to slow-mo, right?
Mhm.
And so we probably need to back up and I'll have to show you my settings. So let me go out of here. If I go into settings and then I come down to it might be under camera. So I'm recording video at 1080 and then I'm recording slow-mo at the 240 frames per second.
Mhm.
That's what mine happens to be set at. So I don't know, just whatever. But it is deceiving with slow-mo because you have to record something for quite a while, like just to get a minute of video. Well, wait, no, that's the time lapse where you have to do that. With slow-mo, let's see, I don't have anything moving, but I can move my hand. So I'm gonna just do a video of my hand moving here. Okay. So you just record it the same way you do a normal video recording. All right, so that's a titillating video there. All right, so now there's the video. And so it's going to slow it down automatically when you replay it. See?
Mhm.
So it's fairly easy to do.
Mhm.
Does that answer that question?
Sure. That's good. We did have one other question that came in, and it's about touch retouch. So sometimes on touch retouch, when I remove an object, it blurs the rest of my picture. How can I avoid that blur?
Start over.
Yeah,
Sometimes it takes a few times by enlarging or pinching a little larger.
okay.
That helps, to eliminate some of that blur.
It could be that they're just maybe wanting to get too much of a correction, and sometimes it can only do so much.
It could be.
Yeah.
Yeah, so like here, if I'm trying to retouch that out, well, I don't know if you want me to. There's the touch retouch icon. And if I go into albums and choose that image we were just looking at.
Because it is trying to blend it with the rest of the picture, and that's its attempt, I think, to blend it, right? When it does that.
Right, kind of like a content aware.
Yeah.
I can't find that easily. Wait a minute. These are all grayed out, so I can't read that very easily. I'm trying to find the album because I had made an album called Valencia Bay.
In my, just time working with it a little bit, I find that if the background is similar around it, all around it, you have a much better chance of getting rid of it because it's not pulling from too many different types of picture look.
Right.
You know,
Exactly.
it just says, oh yeah.
I can't find that, but there is, did anybody show you guys how to do like, let's say power lines or something like that with touch retouch?
Yeah, and that works great a lot of times.
Yeah, it's really awesome for something like that.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Anything else? Oh, I didn't really, with the macro on the 13, does anybody want to see?
Sure.
So if I go into the camera, I actually have a little camera here that we can practice with. And if I set it on the super wide lens, you see that super wide lens. And if I come in here and I want to get real close, I can do that with the 13. Now you have to kind of be parallel to your subject, but I'm about an inch away and you see how it, picks up sharpness there. So that's pretty amazing for the 13. But like I said, I like pinching it to about 0.9. And now I can really, get in there and still be sharp on something if I want it or whatever. So that's just one idea. And then,
Charles, can I ask you a question about that?
Sure.
Does it matter if you're on 0.5 or on 1 when you're going to macro?
No, I think 1 focuses close to. They don't tell you that, but if I go on
It seems
1,
to be the same.
yeah, 1 will focus pretty close to. Well, I don't know. I have to be a little further back with 1.
Okay.
Yeah, because it's not engaging that ultra wide lens to do that. But this little guy, the little clip-on thing, I want to just show you guys. I mean, this is pretty amazing. So I've got my 3 lenses here. I don't know if you can see. If you look at my picture, not the picture of my webcam, can you see me as a presenter? There's my 3 lenses. Anyway, if I take this little macro thing and clip it, you have to clip it over the bottom lens. There's 3 lenses on there. It's the bottom one, and you get it aligned just right. And check this out. I mean, this is like, well, okay, if I could go to the widest, but I think it's better. I don't know. Let's see. I haven't used this too much with the 13, but if I go to the widest, let me just zoom in a little bit more. I can get, where is it? I can get even closer and shallower depth of field with this if I play around. Maybe you have to be on 1. And of course, it helps to be parallel. Let me try it with this poppy here. Yeah, see, I mean, I can get in really, really close. I wonder if you have to put it, let me try it on a different, hang on, because I'm still learning how to do this. Maybe it has to be on
A tripod. I mean, sometimes, it's like hard to handhold, right?
Right.
Steady, so the camera's keeping.
But you can get pretty darn close. Like
go.
that's closer than the native camera can focus with so the little clip on just gives you even more magnification, I guess is the point.
Cool.
So any other?
I don't know. Anybody else have any other questions for Charles? Excellent, by the way. Terrific.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, I hope I didn't make it too complicated, but I also hope I didn't make it dumb it down too much.
just right, I think. But I
okay.
Think
okay.
And we'll be able to watch it again. So
Sure. Yeah. So I think that covers. Now, there's one other in the PowerPoint. I just wanted to. let me bring that up one more time, just in case people are interested. Okay, I'm gonna share the desktop instead. Come on. Okay, so this is a little pamphlet that my wife and I put together. If anybody's interested, do you see my phone on top of this or anything? Wait, I need to, hang on. I'm in the wrong. Let's use this. There we go. Share. Okay, this is better. If you're interested, it's just like a little pamphlet that goes over like the whole top. It's designed to fit, you know, in your camera bag or in your pocket. It just gives you a cheat sheet for Snapseed on the top panel. And then there are a few other apps on the bottom that it talks about. Then there's another one for shooting apps. And this also is kind of a pocket guide. And this has some different apps on it that are shooting, two of which I've already demonstrated for you. So it's just like a little cheat sheet guide if people are interested. And then this book, if you guys are really into like this painterly stuff with using multiple exposures and slow shutter speeds and making your photos look more painterly or abstract, this is a really awesome book for that. And there is a chapter in there that talks about iPhone, but it's mostly designed for showing you how to use your big boy or big girl camera to do painterly stuff. So it's available at this Impressionistic Photography book website. And I'll be glad to send one to you. I've already sold 1,000 copies of that thing. I've self-published it. So very proud of that. And then this is another one that I've done that's all about close-up photography or macro. So that's a whole nother topic. I'll be glad to come back and talk to you guys about that too sometime. But this is really good, especially in the winter. It talks about stuff you can do indoors, tabletop setups and so forth to do really cool close-ups. It's got a section on equipment and fill flash, and it just goes through a whole bunch of, like, here's this one really cool thing you can do with water droplets and a piece of glass. So that's fun. And then these are,
could you send me the links? Could you send me the links to all of those? Because I see
sure,
different emails and you know, websites or whatever.
Sure, absolutely. Yeah, I can send you that. These are just 3 webinars that if you wanted, they're $20 each, and you can just listen to me talk about different topics. They include live demonstrations. So that's one of the things. And then just thought I'd highlight workshops real quick. If you want to get on my email list, you're welcome to. I don't share with third parties or anything, but you can let me know if there's a particular workshop you're interested in or not. Just, you know, hey, I want to follow you or keep in touch about classes. I am going to be doing 2 macro workshops in Atlanta, which is not too far from you guys. And then let me just bring that up. That'll be in March, so still have some spots left for that, and 1 spot left for a really amazing garden north of Atlanta called Gibbs Gardens, where I'm going to do a 2-day class there. So that would be sort of close to you all. Or if you really want to venture further, like I said, I'm going to be in Holland and Tuscany and have openings still for those. I'm also going to be up in Wisconsin at a place called Madeline Island School of the Arts, and it'll be myself along with 3 other macro photographers, and that's a really amazing place. All the meals and stuff are included in that one. And then I'll be up at Cape Cod in July. So if you're interested in flowers and gardens up there, and then British Columbia, if you don't go with me, make sure you try and go someday to the Bouchard Gardens or Butcher Gardens in British Columbia. I would say it's my favorite garden in all of North America. Really an amazing place. So if you ever get up there, it's just north of Seattle. And so that'll be in August. And then I'll be doing some fall color here in Colorado. So, And this is the email address. Like I said, if you want to be on the email list, you can just send an email telling me. And I don't share with anybody, and I don't send too often. So, and my website is under construction. It's going to be probably by the end of the year, live and ready to go. But there's a lot of work that has gone into making a brand new website. So if you go to the website now, you can still see some of the workshops, but you won't see too much else. But if you're interested in the lens kit I mentioned, or, you know, ordering the books and so forth, let me know, and I'll send that actually to Bob, the
Good.
links for all of that.
Yeah,
So,
then I'll share it with everybody else. Yes, go
yeah.
ahead.
Have you, I'm sorry, I had to step away. I had to pay the painter, paint my
No
laundry
worries.
room. By the way, he painted my laundry room purple, in case anybody wants to know.
Ah,
So there were some questions here. Did you ask him any of the questions?
We did. The only one that I think I just saw was about using Vinci and any demo for how to download a picture to use. I'm not really sure what that means. I'm not.
Okay. One question is, sometimes on Touch Retouch, when I remove an object, it blurs the rest of my picture. You did that one?
Yeah, we did
yeah.
that.
Okay. And what about, how can I add music to a video?
Didn't do that one.
So there's, if you're on a Mac, there's a program called Photomagico, and that's spelled with an F. F-O-T-O, Magico, M-A-G-I-C-O. That's a fairly easy program to use if you're using a Mac. If you're on a PC, there's one called Pro Show Gold. And that one is a little more of a learning curve, but you can add, and there are probably much simpler ways. I just can't think off the top of my head. But there, if you Google, you know, free slideshow programs,
Okay.
there might even be an app on your phone that's free, you know, that does it. So
yes, I've been trying out that the iMovie.
oh, okay.
Yeah.
That's
okay.
cool.
So also, did you already ask the question about the Vinci app?
No, I just brought, no, just now we did. I just did. I don't know if, you know, any demo for how to download a picture to use using the app, or I'm not sure what the question is really.
Do you know what Vinci is? Have you seen that, Charles?
I have not.
Oh,
how do you spell it?
V, like Vinci, like Leonardo da Vinci, but just Vinci.
Okay.
So
I'll
that's
check
an
it
app,
out.
a fun app. I can't remember if I had to pay a couple bucks or if it was one of the free ones. It's in the same department as the Prisma.
Yes. All right.
So if you say you like artsy fartsy picture, turn your picture artsy fartsy. That's a good
one. All right,
one.
thank you.
So someone was asking how to help use that, and I can show that person how to use it.
There you
Awesome.
go.
Great.
Okay.
Thank you. Yeah, thanks for telling me about that. That's what's so fun about this. We learn from each other.
Yeah.
Vinci, I'll check it out.
Yeah.
Cool.
Cool.
And I also have some in-laws that are moving to Naples, so stay tuned. I might do something at the Naples Botanical Garden.
Oh, that'd be cool. Nice.
So,
and
some more other in-laws that live near Tampa. So,
okay, it's about
two sets of in-laws.
It's about a 2.5 hour drive from here.
How did we get that pamphlet?
So I'll send the information to Bob.
Okay.
Yep. And you know, you can order them. Most people get both, you know, or I could send you just one of them. Yeah.
Great.
Anything else? Anybody?
Totally good. Love it.
Awesome. Well, I hope that I at least inspired you guys to start using the phone more than you have been.
Terrific.
Oh, I take pictures of food sometimes too, and I can't wait to do the oily bubbles on the water.
That's right. Just put some olive oil in
pretty
water.
sure Eric is going to want to paint that.
Oh, you said that.
Cool. Great. Well, you guys have been a great audience, and I really appreciate it. And I'll be glad to come back and talk about macro or impressionism or whatever if you're interested later in the future.
That sounds great. We'll take you up on that, I'm sure.
Cool. Cool.
Yes, thank you, Bob, for finding Charles.
Yes, thank you so much.
Yeah.
He's great.
How did you find me? I can't remember.
Well, I did one of you had some type, was it the hunts that you did
Right.
right? So I saw you on there first.
Ah,
Then I bought
okay.
one of your videos on impressionistic, photography.
Cool.
And I don't know where else. I saw you in another place, but anyway, a few different places. You're showing up everywhere. So,
Well, I don't know about that, but
well, you're showing up, definitely
yeah,
in places. So I found you there online. So I just,
awesome.
and then I said, that'd be great for us. So,
Yeah, absolutely.
yep.
All right. And if anybody's got questions, I'm here to like help you on your photographic journey. So feel free to reach out with email and like I said, I've done the one-on-one stuff with people too. That's really a way to accelerate the learning curve.
Yes, definitely. So if anybody's interested in any of that, they would just email you directly at
Right.
charles@charlesneedlephoto.com.
Correct.
Yeah. Okay.
Great.
Ready?
Thanks. Must be
Great.
dinner
Thank you for your
time there, so I'll let you go.
All right. Thanks again, Charles. Have a good night.
All right.
Thanks
Thank
again.
you. Take care.
Yep.
Bye.
Bye-bye now. So let's see. Everybody's leaving.
I'm not leaving. You can't get rid of me.
So what did you think of him?
That
He
was
pretty
really, really
huh?
good.
Goodbye, all.
The guy is great, right?
Bye, Mel. Yeah, I thought it was good. Yeah, I learned a lot more. Bye, Sharon. I'll show you the vending machine.
Oh, you know what?
I'll show
I
you
gotta
the
stop the